Yes, overnight attacks seem to be only intensifying, and with an increased intensity in the artillery shelling, and it seems like the Israeli military was using all of its military arsenal, with the exception, of course, of the nuclear power, just to point that out. But there were quadcopters, attack drones, there were helicopters, there were fighter jets, artillery shelling, tanks, all at once. It started from midnight. As the time as of now, as we speak, there's still sound of explosions from the eastern part of the city of Rafah, as well as the northern part. That's the border area between Hani and Rafah city. And the initial reports that we're getting right now is overnight attacks targeted residential homes of the eastern part of the city. There were targets of public facilities, infrastructure that, including roads and main routes connecting Khan Yunis with Rafah city. All of this has been mounting the pressure on people. I can safely say that it was a sleepless, restless night for the vast majority of the people in Rafah city here, and it's still continuing to happen right now. There is a denser presence of attack drones, just making it very difficult for any possible movement in or out residential homes. There is a state of panic and fear, and for a lot of people, this is the beginning for them. This is probably the beginning of the offensive in Rafah city.
The offensive, of course, that the Israeli military has been warning about for well over a week now. They have been saying that they are going to advance their ground operation into Rafah. And Hani, when you speak about, the vast majority of people in Rafah and how they're feeling, it's really important to remind our viewers at this point that the vast majority of Gaza's population is now in Rafah, is in its southernmost city on the border with Egypt.
Yes, that is accurate. More than half of the Gaza Strip population have been squeezed into this small part of the city. I mean, you can easily spot how densely populated has the Rafah city become just a brief walk into the streets of Rafah, and seeing all the tents that have been set up on the sidewalks or on the little island in the middle of the road, or in evacuation centers managed and run by UNRWA, and all the empty pockets of land here. At the initial weeks of the war, when we arrived here, or we did some of the reporting, the city was still relatively empty, with the exception, of course, of the local residents. But just within a span of 2 months, the population went from 250,000 all the way to a little over 1.7 million people here, all crowded in this small part. The city doesn't have enough space, doesn't have a proper infrastructure, doesn't have necessities and facilities to accommodate this large number of people. So far, what we're looking at, the pattern that's been created on the ground, is not only displacement and the fact that there are difficult living conditions that they have to experience on a daily basis, and what seems to be their new normal. Now, on top of this is the mounting the trauma of the threat of the ground invasion. But they are left with no options. And in terms of safety, it's equivalent to none or very limited, because no talks about a possibility of providing a safety zone or a safety corridor. And even if there are talks about this, there's still that terrible experience they had in the past with safety zones designated by the Israeli military, and its people ended up being killed in the very designated zones that the military told them to go to. And right now, there is a huge explosion going on at the northern part of the city, and I can clearly hear it.
Hani, thank you very much for that. That is our correspondent, Hani Mahmoud, joining us on the phone from Rafah with the very latest. Thank you, Hani.